I feel so much better in many ways. I've got more energy. I just felt so much more in control and confident.
Hey, everybody. Today we have an interview with Sarah, and Sarah is a busy executive who works for a global company where she's on call all the time. And that certainly did not fit with her mounting level of symptoms, but also new diagnoses that's been coming on. When you listen to Sarah's story, you'll find out that she's had a long history of Raynaud's and was later diagnosed with Hashimoto's, possible PCOS, and then finally Scleroderma. Take a look at what led her to finally really seek out help beyond what her doctors were telling her. Her journey mirrors also our host Anne's journey as well, as far as being newly diagnosed with scleroderma. So many of you are out there with that diagnosis, and it sounds so freaking scary. So I'm really glad to be able to have her share her journey with you guys so that you can really hear what it's like for someone to be newly diagnosed, what it's like to find help, all the walls that you go up against and all the waiting lists, and what do solutions really look like, and where is she now? She's about 4.5 months out from the program. I can't wait for you to see where every single one of her symptoms, diagnoses, and where her mental and physical health is currently, not just for her, but with her partner. I'm Maggie Yu, MD. I am a functional and holistic medicine physician and the creator of Transform and the Transform program to teach anyone how to turn around their autoimmune disease naturally. If you want to learn more about Transform Autoimmune, click the link above or below this video so you can join our Facebook group. We're almost at 70,000 at the time of this recording in this group, making us one of the largest educational Facebook groups on the planet around autoimmunity. If you're watching from Instagram and YouTube, make sure you give us a like and a follow, and TikTok too. Give us a like and a follow. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Anne. So my name's Sarah, and I've been living in the United States for the last 7 years, but I'm originally from the UK, as you can
Could hear it.
I live with my husband in California, and I work full-time in learning and development.
Tell me a little bit, learning and development. What does that mean exactly?
Essentially, I'm responsible for making sure that managers at my organization are trained to lead people really effectively. So I design training.
So you have to be on it. You're kind of the boss's boss.
You could think of it like that. I guess. Yeah.
So it sounds like a high-powered job, probably demanding, I assume, as well.
Yeah, it's demanding. What's demanding for me in particular is that I work for a global organization, and the teams that I work for are all over the world. So I'm on calls, first thing in the morning, last thing at night, dealing with everybody's time zones. And for me, I think particularly with some of my health challenges, that's particularly demanding.
So let's talk about the health challenges that you've experienced over the last several years. When did it all kind of start?
So for me, it all began in 2018. So that was 4 years ago. And the first thing that I became aware of was an underactive thyroid. And I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis in 2018. And I started to learn about autoimmune conditions at that point, and learned that very often, when you have one, it's likely that you'll have more than one. So right at the beginning, from 2018, I started to really try and educate myself about what I could do to, avoid further diagnoses and limit the progression of my autoimmune disease.
So you were on it. Not everybody is so proactive right at the start, but even sometimes with taking those proactive steps, the autoimmune marches right on. But I'm curious, just to go back to the beginning, what were some of your symptoms that even alerted you to this underactive thyroid?
I didn't really think that I had any symptoms, honestly. So this was something that was picked up through pretty routine blood work. And I think after I knew about it, I could then identify, this is happening, but nothing, some of the hallmark symptoms of an underactive thyroid, I didn't really have, at that time, and maybe never really have had. So for me, it could have very easily gone unnoticed.
What it sounds like, maybe you were catching this at the very beginning, perhaps, because you weren't experiencing a lot of symptoms, but yet what kinds of changes did you make?
So to start with, the things that seemed to be the easiest for me to begin on my own were changing my diet. So a lot of what I read about Hashimoto's and autoimmune disease led me to look into diets like paleo and autoimmune paleo. And I, at the beginning of my my sort of journey, if you want to call it that, I spent, I think, 9 months doing autoimmune paleo diet, which is pretty restrictive. And to be honest, you know, I don't think it's really ever recommended that you do it for that length of time. But I think I was just really grasping at straws, and I didn't really know what else to do, but this was something I could do. And the other thing that I was finding challenging was finding a functional doctor that I felt confident in to really work with me. So I was pretty on my own, and diet seemed to be the thing that I could easily manage myself.
Well, and I think a lot of people can relate to that. I'm curious, what did your doctor that was able to help you with the diagnosis with the Hashimoto's, what did they tell you about diet? Were they supportive of you trying to change your lifestyle to help out?
Well, to be honest, the doctor who diagnosed me didn't really tell me anything about Hashimoto. In fact, they didn't really even mention Hashimoto's to begin with. And it was only when I saw a second doctor about something unrelated that they said, oh, by the way, you realize you have Hashimoto's. So no, my doctors, they prescribed me thyroid hormone, so synthetic T4 hormone on its own. And that was that. We kept checking my TSH levels and adjusting the medication dose to begin with. But then, that was that. And there was really not any conversation about anything else.
So you were getting very basic, standard, conventional care, and you knew based on the research that you were doing that there was so much more that could be done. You had no luck finding a valuable functional medicine doctor. And so I'm curious, how were you feeling? You were just kind of on your own trying to navigate all of this. What was that like?
It was frustrating. It was, a bit scary. And I just didn't feel confident at any stage. I didn't feel confident that I knew what to do. So like I said, I was focusing on diet and, eating a more, what I understood to be a more anti-inflammatory diet. And that was really sort of the most that I felt I could do. Mm-hmm.
But then it wasn't enough. And what happened next with your health?
So I started to notice other symptoms that were really more hormone related than anything else, to be honest. My menstrual cycle became irregular, which it hadn't really ever been. And I just started to feel different. So I had more fatigue for sure. That was one of the main things that I really noticed. And I didn't feel like I had any energy any of the time. So my menstrual cycle essentially just sort of came to an end. And at that point I was, really only 40 years old. So knew something was up. And so I started seeing other doctors who started talking about things like polycystic ovary syndrome, which hadn't been mentioned to me at any stage previously. So I ended up on some different medication for that. And that was really the sort of the next phase, was that I was really, told that I probably, not definitely, but probably had PCOS. Mm-hmm. And so that sort of became another focus at that point. But there was no kind of mention of any link between the thyroid situation and what was going on with my hormones, which, seemed pretty clearly to me to be very imbalanced.
And that's the thing. So many doctors, in fact, almost every doctor out there, will not connect the hormonal link to autoimmunity. And yet it's so critical. It plays a role in both fueling the autoimmunity and can play a very important role in getting things under control, which then you, I'm sure, learned in the Transform program. But it sounds like you had another major diagnosis that I'm assuming led you to want to work with Dr. Maggie.
Yeah, you're right. That's right. So just at the beginning of this year, so not quite 12 months ago, I had another, blood test run by my gynecologist. He decided to do an ANA test, and that came back positive. And the result indicated the likelihood that I had a different autoimmune condition called scleroderma.
I've been there before. I just have to tell you, I had that exact same test done. I came back positive for it as well with the, did you have anti-centromere antibodies?
That's exactly what I had. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you get that result and you get a result like that, one of the first things I did, which they tell you not to do, is don't Google it, right?
Mhm.
Don't look this up because it can be very scary. Is that something that you did?
Yeah, of course I did. And who wouldn't these days, honestly? So yeah, absolutely.
What did you read and what did you feel like after reading that and thinking that you may have this?
It was terrifying, honestly, because I think this was a disease. So scleroderma was a condition that I hadn't heard of before. Didn't know anybody who had it. Wasn't really surprised by that because when I started to learn about it, I understood that it isn't common. But it sounded like it was going to be life-changing. It definitely sounded like something that I would know that I had, put it that way. So, at the time that this blood test result came up, I could already identify with some of the symptoms that I read about, pretty minor ones and ones that I hadn't been, too concerned about, honestly. Just thought they were things that happened with aging. One of the biggest signs for me was Raynaud syndrome, which I'd known about, for years and understood that Raynaud's in many people can be a condition on its own. Primary Raynaud's often isn't the sign of anything else. But
had you had Raynaud's for very long? Because typically Raynaud's that develops before a certain age is more often primary, but Raynaud's that develops after a certain age is most commonly secondary Raynaud's, and as a result of another underlying illness like a connective tissue disease. So was this something that developed a little bit later in life, like in your 30s?
Yeah, it was for me. It was. I mean, I honestly, I couldn't tell you when I first noticed it. It was something that I'd always known about because I'd had friends who'd had it, when I was much younger, a teenager. So it was something that I'd always known of. And then I'm not sure when I started to experience it, to be honest. I think it was a bit certainly later than my teenage years. What I was aware of was that it was becoming worse.
And just for people who don't understand what Raynaud's is, it affects your hands and your feet most typically, and your blood vessels get constricted and abnormally as due to cold or stress or other factors, and your hands and feet can change colors and look a little bit scary. And for some people, it can be quite painful as well. Was it impacting your life though?
Yeah, it was beginning to, it really was beginning to. It was beginning to, it was getting to the point where the last couple of winters, I hadn't been able to walk from my office to my car.
Hey, that's a big problem.
without my hands going numb. And so I would get into my car and, it was at the point where I was researching heated steering wheels and that sort of thing, because I really was finding that the numbness was a problem whenever it got slightly colder.
So here you are now, and the pieces are all starting to come together. You realize you had these symptoms that have been building, and then you finally get this blood test back saying you may have what by any means would be a scary illness to be diagnosed with, causing some fear, potentially some anxiety, imagine, in you. And so was it at that point that you said, okay, enough is enough. I have to find someone who can help?
Yeah, pretty much. That was exactly how it felt to me. So I had I'd been aware of Dr. Yu, and I think what happened was I started to get involved with some of the scleroderma groups on Facebook, and I think that was the point at which I came across Dr. Yu for the first time. I think it was through one of those groups. Yeah.
We have the same story because that is exactly how I found her as well. People in there's all of these scleroderma Facebook groups, and I think I joined them all. And thankfully, someone mentioned in several of them, I think, well, if you're worried about this, check out Dr. Maggie Yu. She has this program. She knows everything there is to know about the link between hormones and autoimmunity. And that was like a light bulb for me to say, wow, that's exactly what I need. That's exactly what I need. I've been searching for this person. Tell me what thoughts were that you were having.
It was the same. It was that same thing. It was really, for me, the magic word was hormones, because, the people were talking about thyroid, and people were talking about scleroderma, and I was like, yeah, I've got both of those. But actually, the thing that's driving me crazy is that my hormones aren't working. They're not what they should be. And I can remember sitting on the sofa with my husband watching this video, and we were going through it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's me. That's me. So that was, that was when I thought, actually, this I got excited at that point. I thought this is something that probably could help me. So yeah, that was good.
You mentioned that you didn't necessarily feel confident in your doctors in the past. So what was so different then that you realized in Dr. Maggie?
I think for me, it was the connections that were being made between all the things that I was experiencing that none of my other doctors really saw as one story. I think other doctors were looking at separate conditions, separate symptoms. And I just had this belief that it must all be the same thing. There's something going wrong here, and it must all be connected. And then I think Dr. Maggie was the first person that I came across who made it clear that, yeah, it's going to be connected.
So you felt confident right away. Did you have any reservations, though, then about joining the program?
I did. I think like many people, time and money were factors that I had to think about. I think particularly from a time point of view, because I think when I understood more about the program, I knew that I was going to want to really put time into not just studying the material, because the program's really comprehensive, and that's what I liked about it. There's lots and lots of information, but as we talked about before, my job was demanding, and I was worried initially that I would be able to juggle the demands of both. So that was really what held me back from signing up from the outset. I needed to know that I was going to have time to really do it justice.
So what changed your mind? You just took that leap of faith and said, I got to do something?
I think that was it. I think the idea that I needed to do something, and that I needed to increase my own understanding and education about what I could do, became more and more apparent to me. So I think that was one of the things I think that really attracted me to the program. It wasn't just, we're going to give you solutions. It was about, we're going to help you understand the mechanisms and what's going on, so that going forward, you will be able to identify the next steps for yourself. So it was really that attracted me. And I think the need for that just seemed to be getting greater, because I wasn't having any joy. I was just on waiting lists. I could find really great sounding functional doctors, but I couldn't get any further than the waiting lists. And I was becoming impatient. And also, I think there was an opportunity for me to take some time to move into more of a caring role. So I spent some time while I was doing the program looking after my mother, who was going through chemotherapy. And I took a little bit of a break from my job to do that. And that provided me with the kind of time also that I would need to really join the program.
So I want to talk about the things that you really needed to address then. You mentioned hormones, obviously. You wanted this information to have a better understanding of what was happening with your body for the long term. And then did you say that you had some sleep issues?
Yeah, I did. So I had gradually become a worse and worse sleeper. And I actually didn't realize really until just before I started the program how little sleep I was getting. So I hadn't done it before, but when I started the program, I started wearing like a health tracker, checking in the morning how many hours I'd slept overnight. And I was quite shocked. I knew it wasn't going to be as many as I would have liked, but it was less. And it was partly, I think, due to just feeling like I had so much to cope with. I found it difficult to kind of shut down and go to bed at night and say, the day is done, it's bedtime. And then
I can relate to that too. And that's frustrating, right? Because you need the sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, at the time when I knew I needed to sleep, I also knew I needed to find out one more thing about scleroderma, or, and it's awful. I was doing exactly what everybody tells you not to do. But
I think we were probably sisters there researching in the wee hours together on the other side of the country or world, depending on where you were living at the time.
Yeah.
So you really needed some help with those things, and you joined the program. And I want to just jump right to it. What are your results now? How is everything going?
So I feel so much better in many ways. So I've got more energy. And I think that's something that I noticed right from the beginning of the program. So the first things that the program helped me to address were hydration and blood sugar balance. And those were two of the sort of basic building blocks that I guess, I started the program 4 months ago, and I've been able to sort of like keep going all the way through. That, they were easy changes to make and I was able to stick with them, but those things have made a big difference. And then I think because of where I was really in my journey with Scleroderma and Hashimoto's, unlike many of the people that I met in the program, I hadn't had them for that long and I wasn't experiencing symptoms like pain. But what I did find was that I just felt so much more in control and confident that I knew what I was doing, and that I was doing the right things. It freed up my time because I don't feel like I need to worry about some of this stuff. I'm not spending my time now researching things and looking for answers because I've found a really credible source of answers that I trust. And now I know what to do, so I can kind of get on with the rest of my life and just do what I've learned in the program.
Well, and if you're like me, I would read about worst case scenarios and how scleroderma could progress. And I truthfully was fearing for my life, thinking that this was going to cause me to have a shortened lifespan. And I was for sure going to get this complication or that complication from scleroderma that was going to shorten my life. Once you got through the program and you started learning about these things and you had a lot more confidence in knowing how to navigate your health in an effective way, did you start to let some of those thoughts that maybe you had also creeping in fade away a little bit? What was that like?
Yeah, I did. Honestly, those things are not top of mind for me so much at the moment, which is fantastic. So I feel like a whole layer of just worry and anxiety, as you say, has been removed because I have got a lot more confidence, not only in the fact that I think I know what to do now, but also I've got such a better network now than I had before. So, in the program, I worked in a small group with 5 other students, and we're all still very much, I was texting them yesterday. So we're still very much in touch. When somebody has a question in our group, we're in a group so that we can ask a question, and everybody's great about responding straight away. And then anything that I couldn't find an answer from with my immediate little circle, I know that I could go back into the Facebook groups of the alumni from the Transform program, and I'm sure there would be somebody who could help me there. So it's, even though I've got to the end of the program, I still feel a connection to the program, so that I know that if I have a question about something, I know where to go, which I never had that before. It's been fantastic. So yeah, so that was a really nice feature of the program, as was all the mindset stuff that we did. So we had a facilitator in my small group who we met with every week, and she would lead us through different ways of looking at things, different mindsets for us to adopt. And actually I found that really, really helpful. I really liked, some of the things. It was simple, but very helpful.
So simple, but so dramatic, the results it can have. I'm in the program right now. I don't know if you know that. I'm actually just in the early weeks of the program. And I too was not expecting the mindset work to be as powerful of an impact as it really is. I'm like, okay, I want to learn about the results, and I want to get my blood test, and I want to get my hormones checked, and I want Dr. Maggie to analyze all of that. But the mindset piece is just as important. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. And I think, and I've been somebody who wasn't very good at stuff like that before, if I'm honest. I would be cynical and I would be skeptical. And actually, I think this is one of the only things that I've come across that I've actually thought, this is good. I like the way they're addressing mindset in this. It's, it feels accessible to me as, a cynical European.
She said it, not me. No, but that's so wonderful. And I'm glad that you felt like you really had a breakthrough. So I'm curious, what else did you love about this program? And what did you think about working with Dr. Maggie?
Well, I've got to say, I just really enjoyed it. You know, I missed it when I came to the end, and I was sad that it was over. I think the thing that was a really nice surprise for me was that everybody in the team, so Dr. Maggie, Ali, who was the functional nutritionist that we worked with every week, the pod facilitators, they all took the time to really understand all of us and what was going on with all of us, because I think it was never a big concern for me, but I know from speaking to some of the people I met through the program that one of the things that they've been hesitant about was that all of the calls really are group calls, so we learn together in a group. And I think people had been worried that they weren't going to get enough personal attention, but I was really impressed by how Dr. Maggie, how Ali, how everybody on the calls always knew what was going on with me. They knew that I was living with my mum. They knew, they would ask about her, and I felt like I got a really kind of like personalized focus from everybody, which I really enjoyed, and was really impressed by.
Yeah, you really are getting more individualized attention in this program in a group setting than you would ever get in a conventional medical world. And I think that can be surprising for some people, but it's a very happy surprise once you realize, okay, they actually know who I am and I'm getting so much attention from them. So we talked about your fatigue went away. What happened to your sleep?
So my sleep's got better. So I think, I still need to work. I still need to work on it. I'm not, it wasn't a case of flicking a switch and all of a sudden I'm an 8 hours a night girl. That's work in progress, but it's definitely got better. I'm definitely getting more. I'm in better habits and routines.
Energy massively improved. Sleep definitely better. So it really sounds like this really did change your life then in a meaningful way. I'm curious, are you back to full-time with work and everything? So how has that adjusted it for you? Because even as you were talking about the mindset piece, we were thinking about, your job is to train other leaders. And there's a lot of mindset work that goes on there as well. What you've learned in the program, potentially, you're able to then apply in a professional setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was going through the program, I was like making mental notes about, well, this would be useful. I could see how I could, share this with somebody here and there. And so that was, that was interesting and helpful as well. So yeah, I think it's having a positive impact for me.
And then the energy, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's really the thing that I'm most thankful for at the moment, is that right from the beginning of when I started to implement the changes with hydration, with balancing my blood sugar, which, by the way, was probably the missing piece for me. That was
blood sugar.
I understand how central it is to helping with autoimmune disease. And it was something that nobody'd ever mentioned it to me. So, it has been a big focus for me. And I think that's, been at the root of some of my success.
I can completely relate because nobody really talks about that. I mean, nobody talks about it.
No.
And to learn that those high-low swings are what fuels autoimmunity was really eye-opening for me. And it made me take a step back now and say, I have to really focus on keeping myself balanced. So you, within a matter of days, do you think you started to notice some improvements after you changed some things around in your diet?
Yeah, it was easy to do, and it was easy to see the changes. That was something that, like I say, from the beginning, so as soon as somebody explained it to me, I was like, oh, right, well, I can do that. And yeah, sort of instant success, really.
I love it. How has this impacted your husband and your relationship with your husband?
He is really pleased that I did the program. So, I mean, he was always keen for me to do it. He was a big supporter. He's definitely noticing certainly the change in energy. And I think that he's interested enough to sort of understand some of the things that I've done, particularly with blood sugar and my diet, to want to understand how he can do that for himself. I think he's seeing the benefits, and
he wants in. He's like, wait a minute. You've made all these positive changes. You have more energy. I don't have autoimmunity, but I could use that energy too.
That's right. Yeah, that's it.
So it's impacted your relationship in general then, not just him on a personal level, but your relationship, it sounds like, in a very positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the months, particularly between my scleroderma diagnosis to when I started the program, I was just completely preoccupied. I was trying to solve this problem and I didn't know where to go and I didn't have anybody to help me. That was really difficult. And, my husband's fantastically empathetic and he was very supportive throughout that time. But it's nice now that, that is no longer preoccupying all of my thoughts. So, we can just get back to getting on with enjoying ourselves.
You found someone in Dr. Maggie, and she had already done all the research. And as a physician, she'd been through it herself, somebody that you trusted. You could say, okay, I'm going to let go of this and let you guide me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that I would mention in that is, Dr. Maggie absolutely was, a huge support and everybody connected to the program, but also going back to what we said about being part of a community, it's made a big difference to me now that I've got a small group of people that I've got to know really well, and then a wider group with the wider alumni group who have likely been through the same things that I'm going through and can answer my questions as well.
Well, yeah, because at the beginning, you said something to me when you first learned of scleroderma, you'd never heard of it before, and you discovered it was rare. And I can relate to that. And Dr. Maggie talks about that too, is that so many of us feel like this. She calls it a super special rare zebra, right?
Yeah.
But then you learn more, and maybe these people in your group aren't experiencing the exact same issues that you are or facing the same diagnosis, but you realize so many of these people are going through the same thing that you are, and you're not super special rare. You're still special, but not in this rare, scary way. It sounds to me like that has been invaluable for you.
Absolutely, it has.
And when I'm talking about invaluable, you mentioned that the cost of the program was something that made you think twice, and that you had to take pause for a moment and say, okay, can I afford to invest in myself in this way? Looking back now, what kind of a price would you put on the value of this program and how it potentially has changed your life forever?
I have absolutely no regrets about the investment that I made. I definitely think it's been worth it, no question at all. And I'm really glad that I did take that step and decide to go ahead and do it, because I've got no doubts whatsoever that I'm going to continue to see the value from it forever, really.
Yeah. And this is something that you said, luckily you kind of jumped right in, did a lot of research, and you weren't struggling with this for many, many years like some people have. You've turned this around early on. What do you want to say to somebody out there that might be watching this and maybe they're like you and they just got a scary diagnosis, something that they're worried about? What do you say to somebody out there wondering, is this program right for me?
I would really encourage anybody who is having concerns about autoimmune disease, hormone issues, blood sugar issues. I would really encourage them to seriously consider joining this program. I think what I would say is that from having met loads of people on the program, as you said, many of whom have gone through much longer journeys with some of these conditions than I have, this seems to be the program that makes the difference to them. So, what I've noticed is that people that I've come across in the Transform program have said, I've been trying this for years, I've been doing that for years, this is the first time it's worked. So that was my experience, and I felt very encouraged from day one. As soon as I joined the first call and started meeting people, I could see that people were in tears weekly about the successes they were having. So I would definitely advise that somebody seriously considered joining the program. I don't think they'd regret it at all.
Well, Sarah, I'm so glad to hear that you have had those similar results and that you're one of those success stories, just like basically everybody that you went through the program with is as well. It's amazing to be around a group of people and everyone is having success. It almost seems too good to be true, but no, you saw it, you experienced it, and you're a part of it. So happy for you. And I'm just excited to hear about your continued positive test results in the future and how things are just going to continue to get better for you. Thank you, Sarah, so much for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Maggie, that interview I enjoyed so much, not only because I'm so thankful that her health has had such a turnaround and she has her energy back and she's able to function at the way at work that she really, really wanted to and needed to, frankly, being such a busy executive, but also because we talked about maybe this interview is going to touch somebody out there when they watch it back. Well, it touched me.
Well,
I really can relate to her journey, and
both can. I mean, you and I and so many people watching are busy working women who are very highly intelligent, super learners who are actually curious and hungry for this knowledge and this kind of level of confidence in our medical health.
It's so true. It's so true. And, we've all kind of, maybe a lot of us have that same personality type too of, okay, we're going to get to the bottom of this and we're going to research until we figure out an answer.
What that
And
means is I'm going to Google and scare the shit out of myself.
it's so true. And we're losing sleep over these things. And it doesn't really get you, it doesn't get you anywhere. And we talked about mindset work, and that's a big part of it too, is letting
Yeah.
some of that go
Yeah.
and putting trust in somebody, finding somebody who actually can help. And she found you, and you were the answer for her. And frankly, I found you too. And so unfortunately, you had to find yourself and go through so many years.
Well,
And
yeah, let me do it the
making a
hard way.
decision.
Let me do it the hard way. It took me, 16 years, and over $1 million in education, time, energy, lost work. Why not just learn what I had? Took to me 10 years to learn, 16 years actually, to finally learn and master. And why not put that and learn it for yourself? I'm just thrilled to pieces. If I could just, anybody watching this video, if I could just make one woman out there more confident, more trustworthy and trusting of herself, and have more of an ability to listen to her. She has more time now than ever because she's no longer spending time worrying and living in crisis or anxiety. I want to
Yeah.
end that. That is endable, crushable for anybody with autoimmunity, whether you're a man, woman, or child.
That to me was a really, really big point. I could tell that has changed her life in such a dramatic way that she isn't spending every minute of every hour
Yeah.
that she's not
So
working
suffering's
obsessing over the
optional.
diagnosis.
Suffering's optional. So nobody needs to be out there suffering with that. And that's why
Wow.
for anybody out there, if you guys are wanting to learn more about Transform Autoimmune, just click the link above with this video. You can join our Facebook group. You can also start a chat with our team. That's the best way for us to learn more about you, so we can actually personalize some of these trainings and resources to share with you so you can get to the bottom of this faster.
Thank you to Sarah for sharing that story, and thanks for everybody watching.